This is short story. To the yellowing. Enjoy it. I am a diamond-shaped leaf of a pyramidal poplar. Our father descends from an ancient lineage of silver-leaved giants that grow in the temperate belt and were brought to this region 4 centuries ago by special order of the imperial family to green the steppe zones far from the center. Now our father, a mighty, towering 50-year-old poplar, is the pride of the most densely populated district of the metropolis. His roots have gone 10 meters deep into the soil, pushing aside stones and pipes, while sideways he is spread for 24 meters beneath the asphalt, in places unsettling the pavement itself. Our father's crown blocks the sky at the height of a 7-story building, and the branches, our mother's, twine into an incredible arabesque of patterns, giving us life. I am one of 24,345 leaves born from buds on a beautiful spring morning, May 15th, 2025. I remember the day of my birth. The sun broke through between gray buildings and caressed with its rays the branch on which my bud grew. The warmth of the luminary together with cool dew brought me to life. I shed my husk and unfolded, and it was beautiful. Everything around was beautiful. The branch, the trunk, the earth, the grass, even the gray concrete of the walls and the air, thickly saturated with smog. Yes, my green side soon began to gather city grime, and my silvery side dulled slightly. But the tree's sap fed me through my petiole, and I was unspeakably glad that I could adorn this world with my appearance. For I am a silver-green leaf of almost perfect shape, and I was to live on the branch for a long, long time. I understood this as I watched a sunbeam warming my veined surface. Then a bird landed on the branch, perhaps a rook, and I admired it, and it admired me. And then other birds arrived. Magpies with white sides and bluish-black wings, tits with yellow bellies, crows with gray feathers. I remembered them all and made friends with them. And it was beautiful. The world was beautiful, and I was beautiful. But then the wind blew, nearly tearing me from the branch. And I realized I needed to pay attention to it. And when the gust came, I felt fear for the first time. But I soon grew accustomed. My petiole was strong. The poplar held me securely in its embrace. And I was grateful to our Father for the strength with which He nourished us. And so the days passed, one after another. They folded into weeks so strangely that it seemed to me time flowed like water. I watched the people passing beneath my branch, young and old. With the young I laughed along, the old I did not envy. I did not want to lose my beauty, to trade it for withering and fragility. Saturated green, flexibility, joy, that was another matter. I heard dogs barking on leashes, all trying to leap aside from their owners and nose around the nearest bushes. I saw how a ginger cat, day after day, climbed the trunk to the lower branches and warmed itself, lying among them and offering its fur to the sun. Birds came every day, chirping different news. Repairs had begun in the neighboring courtyard. Soon they would reach our sidewalk as well. But for now it was watered twice a day by a special humming machine. Humans are strange creatures. They seem to care about cleanliness, yet their air is dirty. Sometimes it is so hard for me to absorb nutrients. The smog interferes with photosynthesis. But that is all right. I receive what I lack together with the rain. Pleasant spring drops fall from the sky, run down from the brethren growing above me. And it feels so good. In moments like these, the world enchants in a special way, becomes so alive, filled with action. And yet, in the chaos of drops, wind, people, and houses, there is a strange order. Its secret still eludes me, but I am almost certain it lies in beauty. It does not wither. At least, I do not want it to wither. Especially since after rain comes a rainbow, and then the courtyard around me turns into a fairy tale. I love such days. But today is not one of them. Today, June 15th, repair workers arrived and began breaking up the old asphalt of the sidewalk at the base of our father poplar. The birds were right. People can be very noisy and harmful. They damaged one of the tree's roots. We all felt it. It was unpleasant. The birds reassured us. They said there would be abundant watering afterward. The workers labored for a whole week. But after that, fresh grass was planted around the trunk. Very beautiful. I rejoice. The birds do too. They love grass seeds. Restless scooter riders immediately began racing over the fresh asphalt. So many of them. Now from the left, now from the right. My whole body trembled from such bustle. Every day, new commotion. Sometimes wind, sometimes cats fighting on the branches, sometimes people quarrel right beneath my branch and then make peace. Sometimes children try to climb higher, to play. In short, life. It is hard for me to keep track of everything. But I am unspeakably glad of the main thing. I give beauty, and I receive it in return. And so 3 months passed in such delight. During those weeks, caterpillars and beetles nibbled at me several times. But worst of all was aphids. It was terrifying to lose parts of myself. Glory to our Father Poplar. He continued to nourish me. And thanks to the sun for light, and to the rain, it drowned the aphids in its drops. Insects kept bothering me all summer. I asked them why they did this. "We want to live," they answered. "We feed on your juicy flesh, but we bear you no ill will." Such is the law of nature. I understood this, but accepting it was hard. I could not reconcile myself to the fact that my beauty was dying, vanishing in the stomachs of aphids, caterpillars, and beetles. My shape was no longer so magnificent, my veins and tissues no longer so bright and rich. I resisted as best I could, twisting in the embrace of the wind, swaying from the city's rumble, trembling from the rain. It had grown more frequent lately. It was August 25th, and the rain had been falling for the second day. The aphids were gone, but a couple of tree bugs would not relent even in such wet and chilly weather. Fortunately, the birds helped me. A tit and a rook took turns pecking the insects away, thanking me. For what? I did not understand. All summer you attracted all kinds of food for us with your beauty. So we ate these little bugs and say thank you. The birds chirped. Changes are coming across all of nature in this land. We feel it with our feathers and feet. So we are storing fat. Yes, new times are coming soon. The birds flew away, and I was left in thought. I agreed with them, for each day I noticed small changes in the weather. Hot days were increasingly replaced by merely warm ones. And sometimes, because of rain and wind, it became especially chilly, like today. And I confess, I myself felt strange changes within me as well. Not yet strong, but seemingly inevitable. As if an irresistible force of nature had penetrated my very structure with invisible threads, my very self, and begun to color green cells into other hues. It was strange and frightening. I looked at my brethren. They were undergoing the same changes. "Oh, Father Poplar, what is happening?" I did not want to lose my beauty. For how else to live? Fragile, no longer young, no longer magnificent? The poplar whispered only once in his mighty voice. "It must be so," and fell silent. He knew everything. He had seen such changes many times. I knew this, felt his acceptance through my petiole. Perhaps I should also come to terms with change. No, I could not bear such a dreadful fate. But September 15th arrived, and I understood. Nature had plans of its own for me. On that day, life-giving forces stopped reaching me from the tree. My petiole began to dry rapidly, and so I could hardly engage in photosynthesis anymore. 3 days later, my entire surface began to change, and I became truly terrified. Not like before. Earlier it had been nothing, but truly, deeply terrified. I thought I was dying, thinning, and I was not far from the truth. I was drying, yellowing. Strength was leaving me. The strengthening wind and the relentless autumn rain completed my shameful transformation. I tore away from my native mother branch and, like a yellow little ship, set off through the air downward toward the ground. I am dying, I thought. Another moment, and I will mingle with my brethren on the earth. But then the wind caught my light, almost weightless little body, and sent me traveling on its currents. At first I was hurled from side to side, from one edge of the courtyard to the eastern side of the street. Then the roaming wind lifted me so high that I found myself above the very tips of the crowns. And then I saw the world around me. Rooftops, windows, smoke curling from chimneys, and mountains. I had never suspected they could be so colossal. They stood far away, yet still loomed over the city like cosmic titans above the planets. And yes, by the way, I saw the stars. When I was part of the tree, I saw them rarely, for smog and clouds often smothered the sky with their hulking bodies. But now I was no longer bound by a petiole to the poplar and could cling with my damp side to the wall of a towering house. It rose far higher than Father Poplar and stood closer to the mountains, and so at night I was able, very, very clearly, to study the bright points in the heavens. And their beauty struck me to the core. It turns out the world is broader than any courtyard, denser than any crown of leaves. And beauty is that force which grants order within chaos, its singularity and chaos, in turn, prolongs it in countless guises, from the youngest green to the thinning yellow. Most of all, I felt that I myself could still bestow beauty. Different, perhaps, yet wondrous all the same. I looked myself over, took stock, and understood. Yellow is the new green. Times change, and so does fashion. So I gathered my strength and called to the wind. I had begun to like this adventure. I wanted more. The wind tore me from the wall and carried me down the street, where shops clamored and traffic droned. Soon I settled onto the cold, wet ground, the sidewalk, and was immediately run over by a bicycle. I caught on the wheel and lodged between the spokes. Everything shook. I shook. The world spun. After a couple of blocks, I managed to break free and lie low beneath a dried bush, where I dried thoroughly and more or less regained my strength. Yes, this was not how I had planned to go on traveling and giving beauty. But nature has plans of its own. I remembered that. So I gladly came to rest in the palm of a girl who had gathered several other dried leaves like me. Yellow, red-orange, brown, we became an autumn bouquet in her warm hands. She was not alone. Beside her walked a young man, frowning. The girl, too, was tense and squeezed the little bouquet tighter. She looked down at us. I saw her eyes, yellow-green, beautiful and warm, yet for some reason full of sadness. I felt sorry for her. They walked along the sidewalk and began a quiet conversation. Because of the roar of passing cars, I could not make out the words, but I sensed resentment straining to break free between them. A few minutes later, they began to quarrel, turning to curses and shouts. The girl flung me away with my companions, and we scattered, settling beneath people's feet. They seemed so young, so full of life. And yet there is so much corrosive bile in them instead of beauty, I thought. Where are grace and suppleness? I remembered my green days on the poplar branch. A longing came over me, as though that had been another life. But there was no time for reminiscence. And what memories could a poplar leaf have? I give beauty, and all I can do is fly upon the wind, an ordinary, simple thing. A tiny particle of a vast, vast world. The wind was already waiting. It lifted my body, thin, yet still holding a spark of life. A cold autumn current bore me onward, and at last set me down upon the cornice of a lit window. Behind the glass I made out an elderly woman. She was cooking something in the kitchen. The home was warm and cozy. An old man in a worn shirt entered, embraced his wife, and kissed her hand. She smiled and offered him a spoonful of soup to taste. Seeing them, people who had lived their years and were filled with a special beauty, I knew for certain that it still remained in me as well. A small particle of beauty, and with all my veins and cells I wished to give this particle to the world. But how? The wind answered. This time it raged in earnest. Without warning, it seized me and a whole heap of other leaves and hurled us onto the road, beneath the wheels of cars. My body was driven over, crumpled, pressed. I grew wet again and stuck to the massive wheel of a bus. It dragged me along dirty asphalt for 2 stops. Then I broke free and mingled with the grime in a puddle. From there I was flung back to the curb and swept by a janitor into a pile of trash. And then the wind appeared again, savage now. It scattered the filth, plucked me out, and carried me far away. I flew and flew, a filthy clod that had once been a poplar leaf. At last the wind hurled me to the ground, casting me by the foundation of an old house. There, beneath a bare rosehip bush, I remained. The cold had sharpened. My strength was nearly gone, yet the particle of beauty still flickered within me. From there I could watch the gray sky, and so I noticed early how snowflakes began to fall from above. The first early snow of autumn's chill. It was beautiful. The wind, too, grew quiet, having spent its force. Together with me it watched the slow circling in the air of small, sparkling clumps of snow, unique, almost ephemeral. A dance exquisitely thin and fragile. I remembered how I, too, had once spun like that, carried by a current. I, too, had been unique. Yes, change is inevitable. Once, another such decaying yellow leaf lay on the ground and watched my youthful flight. Now it was I? Why did I resist and think that beauty was finite? The snowflakes did not reach the ground, they melted sooner, soaking into the earth as cold moisture. Because of this, a small muddy hollow formed where I lay. I rolled into it, a little clump. My structure had changed so much that I simply began to fall apart. Perhaps this is the answer? I lay in that hollow beneath the bush for several days, with the edge of my strange awareness catching the of day and night. My body had almost completely decomposed in the earth. The structure collapsed, and I understood that the time had come to give away the last particle of my beauty, to give life to the soil, to dissolve in it completely, to become something new? Perhaps. I did not know. But there was no longer any fear of losing beauty, of losing life. For it will inevitably continue. The order of chaos will alter the structure and present the palette of the world with a new color. I knew for certain that I was ready to accept this change. And perhaps through the soil my particles would reach the roots of Father Poplar. He would absorb them, and I would hatch again from a bud. Or perhaps another path awaited me. A simple thing, a small leaf that made a journey and accepted the changes within itself. There is no fear. There is anticipation and a desire to bear beauty. I will change for this. And then,